Hi, good morning and welcome. I'm Lakshman Koka. I'm one of the board members of Jacinto Valley Chamber of Commerce. And what we are doing is bringing you one of the assembly candidates. We have, just so you know, we have reached out to the other candidate also, but we have not heard back from them yet. And what I actually want to do is thank our Chamber of Commerce board members and our executive director, Cindy Demke, for her hard work in putting all this together. So these are the questions that were agreed upon previously by the board and the chamber folks and everyone else to be asking these candidates. So these are the same questions we'll be asking both the candidates if the second candidate also does reach out to us and come for an interview. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Andrew Kotyuk, our mayor of San Jacinto. Thank you for joining us, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to always be talking to the people of the San Jacinto Valley and through the Chamber of Commerce. When I started in business back in 2005, this was my first resource to start business and work with the community, and it's been incredible 15 plus years. And so it's a pleasure to be here, and of course, I wouldn't miss the opportunity to talk to all the small businesses in the community through you. So thank you for doing this.
Okay, Andrew, we're just going to ask you about 4 or 5 questions, and take your time answering the questions. Depending on what the question is, probably take you a couple of minutes or longer. I mean, you're a professional, you know how to keep your audience interest, so take your time in addressing this. So, a really basic question for you. Why are you running for the Assembly?
Well, first off, wait, I thought we were going to have 30-minute answers on each one. A few minutes, like.
Hey, it's up to you, and if you think the people will sit there for 30, you got it.
No, and I know you won't. We're going to keep it short and sweet, and if you know me, I don't talk too long by any means. But, why I'm running is, being born and raised here in this valley, I just really care about the people. From 2000 to 2010, it was on nonprofit boards and charity boards that I served after coming back from the military and serving the country as a veteran. And I've raised my family here, and of course we spent 10 years on city council in San Jacinto, and I think we've done a phenomenal job of really bringing great things to the valley through the city of San Jacinto and really moving us forward. And I don't see that as our representation for the district, which is the whole valley, Hemet and San Jacinto. I haven't seen any leadership the last 6 years that the incumbent's been in on what they've done for us, what they brought back to our district. They didn't stop the median down Florida Avenue, which was really substantial. And if there was anybody that could have made a difference, it would have been the incumbent after he made a deal with the governor on cap and trade. And then we go into the pandemic, and there's been no leadership again, right, on either emergency supplies or how to reopen safe going into this winter, or bringing those jobs back. And we have such a high unemployment rate. And our community is made up of retirees and then blue collar workers, right, and minorities, and there's no leadership for us. And that's really where I've always come from, is representing the people, the local people. And when I see that lack of leadership, coming from an area where I didn't feel like I had a representation as being raised in a blue collar family here in the valley, I want to give back. People gave back to me growing up here in the valley, just great people, they didn't have to, they weren't part of the family. And so I feel it's part of my duty to be able to do that and give back in a way. And this is the right time, it's time for change, and we really need representation coming out of this. We need to create jobs, we need to get rid of homelessness, we need to improve our economy here, and of course our public safety. So those are all strengths I have, and it's really, I just want to represent the people, represent your voice out there.
Thank you. You kind of touched on this. We've been watching you as a city councilman, city mayor, and you're current mayor, and you folks have done a great job. You took leadership in bringing the right people. Bringing Rob as a city manager was amazing. Tim did a great job. We were worried what's going to happen when Tim retired, and amazingly, you went and saw and brought Rob, who has done an incredible job for the city and for all of us, obviously, and my congratulations to you and your team. So, as an assemblyman, how can you help Hemet San Jacinto and the entire valley. I know you touched on some of those. Any other specific things you didn't touch upon?
Yeah, what's great is, as an assemblyman, you're really, you're going up the chain of command in leadership, and you use that to benefit your community. And I've been able to do that from charities to city council, where you can bring employers to the valley, right? So people don't have to commute as much. There's a lot of grant programs for the homeless, for these needs that we have here to advocate for. The same thing with development of houses, right? And those costs that the state puts on for people to really build affordable housing. And we've been able to find ways at the city level to do that, obviously, which is why we have a lower median age now in San Jacinto of 30, right? It used to be 55. But really, I think the one of the most important things is our highways. I tell everybody we had the Route 66 effect happen to us here in the valley when the 15, 215, 60, and 10 were built around us, in the 80s. And the 70, Florida and Sanderson no longer were really the main thoroughfares for the economy. And we saw all those cities prosper the last 30 years around us. Folks, it's our turn. For the last 10 years, I've fought for our two projects, the Mid-County Parkway and 79 realignment. They're at the top in the county, which is very difficult to do. And this is a time coming out of recession where there's federal and there's state grants for infrastructure, right? I mean, this is the federal government and state government do this to create jobs coming out of recession, right? They put money into these areas to stimulate the economy. We're in that zone. So if there's one thing I can really advocate for and fight for is that our highways get built. And as soon as those get built here in the valley, it's going to turn around property values. More businesses are going to come here, manufacturing, more retailers. We're going to really see this valley turn around. So that's probably one of my biggest priorities of advocating for is connect us with jobs that want to come here, and also to really get those infrastructure dollars into our community to improve what we're doing.
Thank you. I know you've been hitting a lot of points on the questions we have. So what would you say your top 2 or 3 goals would be? And I know you've already addressed COVID-19 a little bit. Anything else specific that you want to do for the valley?
So with COVID, we really need to be prepared for the winter. And I don't feel that we are. I don't feel like we have stockpiles. I don't feel that we, have a plan going into winter if things get worse or aren't as bad as they are, right? So, if there's a vaccine, there's these things that we know are being worked on, and there should be a plan of how to accelerate or decelerate depending on what occurs. I've been working with the county and the county supervisors to develop that plan, and now they're working with other counties to really take some leadership role, which is what I've urged them to do. But we are going into tourism season, which has of course been a big thing for Chamber. I mean, historically we've been tied to the Ramona pageant and a lot of tourism coming into the community, and there's no plan for that, right? There is no plan for to screen tourists as they fly into our international airports or drive in from other areas. And California is the #1 destination nationally and 3rd internationally, right? So we know we're going to get tourism, and that's a huge part of our economy and our small businesses. And so I would really like to take the lead and work with these other leaders to develop what that plan is. And this is a statewide issue, right? Whether it's at Disneyland, we're hearing the amusement parks, or Hollywood, or Napa. This is a major concern in California that other districts and assembly leaders and senators are concerned with. And so I can take that lead to advocate for what that might look like. And then on the flip side is jobs. A lot of businesses have closed their doors. A lot of people are out of work, and that could get worse with this winter. And so, that's really where I shine as a small businessman and a mayor, is creating jobs and understanding how that works. And so I believe there needs to be stimulus for small business to hire people. On top of the federal, I think the state needs to be doing some stimulus. EDD is ridiculous. If somebody files for unemployment right now, I mean, some people still haven't received theirs from March. There needs to be improvements to where those benefits are distributed to people. And then we need to find how we can stimulate job growth in our area. So, to me, it's the safety, it's jobs, and then homelessness, right? Those two first factors feed into our homelessness, which we already have a problem with, but we put people out of work and we make people sick, that's gonna drive up unemployment, right? And that ultimately drive up homelessness. We've already seen several homeless shelters close because of this pandemic. So to me, those three things are really tied together, and I can advocate and really pull that leadership forward to have a plan and drive a unified voice across the aisle, Democrat, Republican, to make change for us, but really, with the goal of helping the Valley.
That's actually a good segue to our next question. Watching the California political scene and the leadership and what's going on out there, especially in Sacramento, what makes you think you can get anything done in Sacramento?
I'm crazy. No.
Well, we think people run for, never mind. I'm getting in my self-political comments here.
I've actually have had the pleasure of making change in some very difficult situations. As San Antonio's mayor in 2012, I led a coalition of mayors to roll back national environmental law under President Obama, and he signed that. And some people would think it'd be crazy to say, oh, a small town mayor of 40,000 people made something like that happen, but I did. We had a need with our highways, and this is part of the reason why our highways are happening, but where we had to do California environmental law and national, and basically it's twice the cost, twice the expense, and California is more stringent than the national environmental law. I think everybody knows that. And so I reached out to a lot of Democratic mayors, Kevin Johnson in Sacramento, and said, hey, do you have this problem? They agreed, and I was in touch with some more congressional leaders federally, and we talked about a path to make that change. There was a transportation highway bill going through at the time, Act 21, that had environmental language. And so I wound up getting large Democratic mayors on board, even though I was Republican. It was Kevin Johnson, we had Antonio Villaraigosa of Los Angeles sign on to it, Mayor Nutter out of Philadelphia, Landau out of New Orleans, and Mayor Bloomberg out of New York. And we passed it unanimously with the mayors, and then we approached Congress, the House and Senate. They folded it in, and President Obama signed it. So, if I can bring change at the federal level that way, and in the environmental aspect, there's no doubt that in Sacramento, I can find a unified voice and direction and energy to make change happen that really benefits us down at our area. And you always tell people as a veteran, I've got a backbone, I don't flip-flop, people always know where I stand, and at the end of the day, it's ultimately, most importantly, to have the local voice and representation, and that's what's missing right now. It's not necessarily party politics, it's the people that need to be represented.
Thank you. Here's another interesting question for you. How will you prioritize the budget choices the legislature must make to align the state's income and spending?
Yeah, money's not a difficult thing. I've had a lot of practice of doing this, not just in the city, but on the regional boards I've sat on. Metrolink, Southern California Regional Rail Authority, which is billions of dollars of budget. What it comes down to is just like how you run a small business, and you all can appreciate this, but as times are good, right, you can expand your budget, and as times are not good, right, you have to learn how to adjust your budget. You can't just raise taxes because times are bad. And so those adjustments need to be made where we accelerate or decelerate with revenue streams or taxation of small businesses. There's so many costs that we put forward on home developers or small businesses, or if you employ people. And now with COVID, where employers are responsible for their employees if they get COVID and have to prove they weren't. There's just so much red tape that, needs to be really thought through, and kind of common talk just needs to be provided up in Sacramento, because ultimately we're going to hurt our own people. And so priority should be, in this situation, with the fires. I think this is a great example. We have all these fires right now, horrible pollution. We should be looking at our environmental programs that are very expensive and taking some of that money to help decrease the fires, right? Not just keep down the one path, hey, let's decelerate here because the biggest pollution problem is fire. So let's tackle that problem. Once it's under control, we can bring that money back. So I think what I bring to the table is that discussion of flexibility, temporarily adjustments to really help or accelerate, decelerate the economy to really increase the needs of our people, which again, I think is the jobs, the infrastructure, and if we need to do some stimulus, I think we should. You know, one of the ideas I brought forward is with EDD. So, you know, we had PPP, right? Everyone knows that program, or most small businesses do, but there was no state program that really benefited or layered on top the state benefits. You know, there's some EDD programs where if you hire somebody, the state will pay for half of their labor or their time if you expand, but they didn't put out any notice on what if you have PPP, right? Do you now not qualify for that? You know, we should be taking a lead to say what the federal government is doing is great, but California is better than that. We're gonna go above and beyond and do more for our people and really try to keep those jobs here in California.
Thank you. Here's an education question for you. Fees for higher education have gone up dramatically and funding has been cut. Is this a priority concern? And if so, what measures would you propose to address it?
You know, I always come back to education and public safety are some of the biggest priorities of government and why they were formed to begin with. And those should be some of our highest priorities. California ranks at the bottom in our educational system. We should be at the top. The same thing goes with our public safety. And so when we talk about really preparing our trades, you know, California wants to be the leader, right? We want to be the leader environmentally. We want to be the leader in entertainment, high tech, biotech. I mean, you can go on and on, exports and imports, our ports. But to do that, we need to prepare our people better, right? We need to qualify them and give them that education to be the best, right? So I think we need to make that investment early on to do that. And I think what's interesting, and I've done this research, and this is actually how I started working with all the Democratic mayors, is when you talk about public safety or economy, it really starts with education. The more people you have, more children graduate with a diploma or a higher degree, your crime goes down, the chances of them being incarcerated go down or becoming a felon, your economy goes up, your public safety, you know, you have to have less public safety because there's less crime. So really all starts with education. I'm in huge favor of finding a way to really improve our access to higher education and get rid of that inequality, right? We know the burden on middle income and low income people right now, right? I mean, the middle class is pretty much being eliminated. We need to bring that back. We need to raise their education, their pay level, their pay grades to do that. And, you know, I talk about this, I come from a blue collar family, a single parent, a broken home, and it was higher education and those things that allowed me the opportunity to do and be where I'm at. And so I owe a great gratitude for those people in the system that worked for me, and I made the most out of it. And there's so many people in that same situation, especially in this pandemic, that are hurt. If there's ever a time to advocate for people and to help them with education and raising them up, it's now. I'm tired of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poor. It's time to raise that standard, and I'm proud to lead that fight.
Thank you, Andrew. How and what programs would you prioritize to bring to the San Jacinto Valley once you're elected as the assemblyman?
Well, definitely working on the transportation. We talked about the highways and opening that up is very, very important. Also, to layer on the enterprise zones. So we have a lot of enterprise zones in the valley because we're low income, so we qualify for a lot of tax deductions for companies to come here. There used to be redevelopment, there used to be a lot of other state programs, and those were all eliminated under the last couple governors. We need to bring that back, right? We have a lot of communities that like ours, and a lot of hardworking people that need those benefits and are tired of commuting, right? To drive 2 or 3 hours a day each direction to LA or Orange County. I used to do that back in 2000 when I lived in Silicon Valley. That's a horrible quality of life, right? You're trying to raise a family and you're on the road for 4 or 5 hours a day. We need jobs here. And to do that, we need incentives to bring those employers here. And then people don't have to drive as much. There's less pollution with their cars, right? You feed into this pollution issue, you reduce that. They have more time at home. More time at home with parents mean more time with their children, which means better education, less crime. It feeds into all those things. So highways, definitely education, bringing more jobs, which is part of my knack, and some incentives to do that and feed into that. And then of course, public safety, right? We've got to quit releasing prisoners. My challenger, he favors for felons to vote while they're on parole, favors early parole. I'm not for any of that. If we prioritize appropriately, we can keep the criminals out of our area. And one of those challenges that we have is with the early parole, you probably have heard me say this, but an unknown secret, this is inside baseball, that I know as a city council member, but a gang member that's released has to live 50 miles out of their gang territory. So if you're a gang member in LA, where do you think 50 miles puts you? Here in our region, right? So those are things that I'm constantly fighting as a mayor, and I understand those challenges as a small businessman, a family man, previous school board member, and of course a mayor, of these challenges that we need to work on. And oftentimes it's legislation, little things that other assembly members will agree to regardless of party, right? So those are kind of my main programs, and that feeds into homelessness, right? We see big money brought into other areas. They come and brought $10 million into Palm Springs for homeless. Well, they just had 3 homeless shelters closed, so clearly it wasn't a good way to do that. But how are we going to address the homelessness here? And I believe it needs to be at the state level, because the state got rid of the mental health facilities, right? Remember, it was Republican and Democrat. It was not just one party. Both parties did this, but this is where we need to fix it, right? We need mental health facilities. A lot of these people are mentally ill on the street, right? The same thing with veteran programs. We used to have the pride of the nation. CalVet was the pride of the nation for veteran programs, PTSD, those sort of things. It's pretty close to been eliminated. It needs to be brought back. And then our drug addiction program with felons or even on the street, we don't have a successful program to help those addicts and to put them in the right position where they're on our street. So there's different categories of homelessness and homeless programs that the state had eliminated, and that I truly believe we need to bring back, because the homelessness problem, we've only really seen it the last 10 years, right? Think back to 2000s or the 90s or the 80s. I mean, we had homeless, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like this. This is a recent problem because of the state. And so those are the programs that I want to bring back and really help to clean up our community and the state.
Thank you. I know you kind of touched on this about safety, and then how things are continue to deteriorate, especially in our valley, and the business community, the way they are suffering. And you are here. We are trying so hard to bring new businesses, and then existing businesses are afraid to stay here. And if you can touch on that, and then if you can give us some ideas that you have. I know you have made improvements in San Jacinto, so maybe you can share that.
So public safety has just been something that's been huge on who I am, right? I mean, as a Navy veteran, I obviously, protected the nation, and I believe that, of course, our public safety does the same thing. And this goes for peace officers and fire, right? Both sides. And medically, it's a dire need. Our fire departments help support forest fires and other fires, right? So we cut our fire departments, everybody else does. That's why we don't have as much support when there's fires, right? We've been defunding the fire departments. Same thing with our public safety. These are vital efforts that we need to protect. And don't get me wrong, we have to live within our means. And I fought for the people to cut back in 2013 where we had to in our budget. But recently we've been increasing our public safety because of these release of felons and the crime that we're seeing. I hope everybody votes yes on Prop 20. That's rolling back some of these problems, right, that we're now seeing, where it's no longer, grand theft auto is no longer really a crime, right? I mean, if they arrest them, they're back out on the street stealing a car the next day. So to be arrested or to walk into Walmart and just walk out with whatever you want, which is what they're doing, these are huge problems, right? Or into your house. In 2018, my house was broken into, during that time frame. Very personal to me to have a high level of public safety, to protect our community and to make sure that people understand that, look, if you're gonna break the law, there's gonna be consequences. And where we're at right now is it seems like there are no consequences if you break the law. Our office building, we've had our windows broken out usually 2 to 3 times a year. Very expensive. It's very hard to, try to hire people when you're paying to offset these challenges the state's putting on us. And I believe if we go back to responsible spending in the budget of the state, we have enough money for all the right things. Because again, California is one of the largest economies in the not just the nation, but the world, right? We're proud of that. So it's not the revenue problem, it's the spending problem on that side where it really comes back to. So I believe we need that safety in our community. We need good response times if somebody has a medical issue, for your family member. And then also, if you call a peace officer, you can't be waiting 2 or 3 times the national average for somebody to respond. They need to be there to help you and your family in time of emergency. And I've been proud to lead that. And I'm proud to be backed by the Riverside Sheriff's Association. The incumbent has a very poor grade by them. He's voted against public safety. I've had public safety's back all along, and that's not a party preference. Again, it doesn't matter what part you are, you care that they come for you medically, or if you have a police issue, that the peace officers show up when you need them to be. Very high priority.
Thank you. I guess it's time for you to address anything else that you may have not addressed, or something you may have addressed already, but you want to put some emphasis on, so the voters out there can see what you are, who you are. So, all yours.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to be here. I'm glad we've kept it fairly short for everybody, but really to me, this race is about a local voice versus special interest. There's no doubt that the incumbent has a lot of money by a lot of special interests, all the fancy commercials and ads and everything else, but we know that his appearance in our valley has been minimal, and everyone would be hard charged to say what changes he's done the last 6 years. I'm so thankful and proud to be supported by local businesses and by all of you. And the last 10 years have been wonderful in the city of San Jacinto, and I really want to bring that benefit to the valley and to the city of Hemet. I drive down Florida Avenue and I see all the boarded up buildings that are there. It's horrible. Growing up here since 1975, I've never seen Hemet like this. And the same goes for the homelessness that we see and some of the crime level that we're seeing, or the people that are moving here that shouldn't live here, right? That are breaking parole with some of the problems they have. What I want to bring is your voice and bring back the beauty of this valley. Advocacy of leadership in my position as an assemblyman, where I'm going to be talking to employers statewide or that are interested in coming to California, or I can advocate on these key issues that really need to be fought for our valley. This is a beautiful place. I've obviously was raised here and I've chosen to raise my children here. I know all of you have also. And this is the right time to bring our highways back, to really bring our renaissance back to our valley. And if we don't have leadership at the state level to do that, and you want 6 more years of no advocacy and no change, I'd find that hard to believe. And as I say, we're a team. I'm the quarterback, so I'm always available. My background, I come from where you're at, starting a business here, or coming from blue collar, or fighting to improve my family life here. So you can always know that I'm gonna have your voice. My door is always gonna be open. And at my heart is always the San Jacinto Valley, both cities, Hemet and San Jacinto. So anyways, vote Kotyuk. I look forward to representing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone. I also want to thank our chamber board members, our chamber members, and also Cindy Lemke for this opportunity to bring leaders that will actually make a difference in our community. Hopefully, not hopefully, actually, I definitely want you to make sure that you exercise your vote either by November 3rd or before. If you have already, congratulations. If you have not, please do so. And thank you, Andrew, and good luck to you.
Don't forget to become a member.
Yes, chamber member, that is.
That's right.